Okay, this video is Dr. Mcdougall from the book, The Doctor Who Fought for You, John Mcdougall, written by me. We're in the chapter on obesity and fat. This is part 3. Okay, so we'll start out with the concept of caloric density. So basically, oil is 9 calories per gram. That's as caloric dense as it gets. So to fill up the stomach would be many, tons and tons of calories. Meat and cheese, now you're talking about 4 calories per gram. Simple sugars in that same ballpark. Nuts and seeds are sort of halfway between oil and then meat and cheese. So the lower the higher the caloric density, the more calories you put in your stomach before it's stretched to get that early satisfaction of hunger. You only got 1 calorie per gram with a starch because it's wrapped in fiber. It's glucose polymer wrapped in fiber. With vegetables, it could even be 10 times less than that. That's why vegetables stretch your stomach the most. If you're trying to lose weight, you want to eat your vegetables first to get that early stretching of the stomach, early satisfaction of hunger. You're less likely to overeat. And so this kind of shows it about as well as it's going to show it. When you eat these high caloric density foods, the higher the percentage of calories in your diet from fat, the more likely you are to become fat. That's an important point. The higher the percentage of calories from fat, the more likely you are to become fat. The other point was eat the lowest caloric density foods first if you want to lose weight. Okay, let's see. Oh, and then you should also know what are the lowest percentage of calories from fat. Potatoes, 1% of calories from fat. Sweet potatoes, 1% of calories from fat. White rice, 1% of calories from fat. The lowest percent of calories from fat in beans would be like lentils, or about 3% of calories from fat. Black beans, about 4% of calories from fat. Garbanzo beans, about 13% of calories from fat. Soy, about 37% of calories from fat. So soy is rather high in fat. Okay, the body prefers to store dietary fat and to burn carbohydrates. This is from Dr. Mcdougall. The brain, the kidney, and the red blood cells especially prefer to burn carbohydrate. You can tell what type of fat a person eats by doing a biopsy. I mean, you just stick a biopsy needle into their fat. It'll come out, proportional to what they're eating in their diet because fat's absorbed and incomplete. Okay, de novo lipogenesis, conversion of dietary sugars to fat, is too metabolically inefficient, so the body seldom does it. I would say it seldom does that with glucose. Fructose is different. So we talked about this before, but what happens is when you eat a meal, your glucose goes throughout your body. It's absorbed into your blood, goes throughout your body. I'm wearing my tie with the autumn leaves on it, just like the song by Edith Piaf. Okay, so anyways, the glucose goes throughout your body, up to your brain, your muscles. It's stored in your muscles as glycogen. But after you eat a meal, the fructose just goes right to your liver. You don't even get any significant elevation in your blood fructose level. The fructose just goes almost entirely right to your liver. And the difference is it enters glycolysis at the 3-carbon phase, which means the middle of the glycolysis cycle, rather than glucose enters it in the beginning in the 6-carbon phase where it's regulated. So if you eat like high fructose corn syrup sweetened drink, soda pop or something, you get this rapid bolus of fructose into your liver. And it goes into glycolysis at the midway point. That's at the 3-carbon phase, dihydroxyacetone phosphate, 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde. The point being is at the 3-carbon phase where it's unregulated and it rapidly gets made into pyruvate. The liver's like, hey, I got nothing to do with this stuff. Why is all this stuff here? Oh, well, just make it into fat. It's basically easy to make into fat. It's already acetyl-CoA, a 2-carbon unit. That's why that guy, Robert Lustig, he jokingly says that fructose is just alcohol without the buzz. Okay, alcohol is ETOH, ethanol, 2 carbons. So what you end up with is very much like the same thing. Acetyl-CoA means 2 carbons. Okay, so just like ethanoic acid, 2 carbons. The relevance of that is it's just convenient to make it into fatty liver. Alcohol and high fructose corn syrup boluses from processed food, they cause fatty liver. And I see fatty liver all day long, every day. It's so common, it's ubiquitous. If you tell me a patient has elevated liver function tests, I don't even really need to look. I just assume that means fatty liver because it almost always does. Yeah, there's exceptions, but that almost always is what it is. Okay, so anyways, fructose makes a person fat. So fructose is different than glucose. That's an important point. Sucrose is half and half glucose, half fructose. Okay, and also the absorption from the gut, you don't even use up an ATP to absorb fructose. It just comes right in through a fructose transporter. Whereas glucose, you often need to at least burn an ATP to bring it in through a coupled transporter with sodium. Okay, it only costs 3% of calories to simply store fat as fat. And if you look around, it costs about 30% of calories have to be used up to make glucose into fat. So the body prefers to just burn the glucose. High-fat foods are not good at satisfying hunger. That's another reason why people tend to overeat them. And this leads to excessive intake of fat, and this leads to obesity. Carbohydrates are what satisfies the hunger drive. And especially from, you eat a starch and it's going to raise your blood glucose level, and that's part of what satisfies your hunger in delayed fashion. Because it takes time for the gut to peel off the fiber, you get a slow absorption of that glucose from the gut into the blood, and you thus get a prolonged blood glucose in the normal level or just slightly elevated. That's desirable. That's what you want. When you eat a lot of fat first, combine it with carbohydrate, then the fat causes insulin resistance, and it gets into the skeletal muscle before the glucose. So then you get a secondary glucose intolerance, insulin resistance, and the blood glucose remains elevated for a prolonged amount of time. And then you saw the point with the fructose, because the fructose goes into the liver. The fructose itself is not going to elevate the blood glucose level, and thus you don't get as much satisfaction and hunger. And we talked about that before, that starches satisfy hunger better than fruits do. With fruits, it's very easy to keep overeating and overeating. And when I meant earlier that I was able to rapidly lose 14 pounds of weight, I've actually lost more than that now. I've lost like 18 pounds of weight just by reducing my fruit intake. So the reason, like, why could I do it? I'm not saying the fruits made me fat, but here's what I'm saying is the difference. When I eat the starch to satisfy my hunger. Then my hunger's satisfied. And normally I keep on eating fruits after that. But I don't need them. I don't need the fruits to feel hungry. I just like eating them. And what I meant is there's nothing to stop me from eating, one serving of fruit versus eating 15 or 20, because it's non-discretionary. I don't get full from them. I just could eat them nonstop. So I just tell myself, okay, I'm going to stop at this amount. And when I decided to do that, my weight just came right down. So it's almost like the fruit is how I maintained my weight. I wasn't fat, but I just wanted to be skinnier. And as a little bit of a joke, I had the idea that I'm basically becoming single. Okay, I am getting divorced. And so I said, I want to have six-pack abs. I want to be skinny again. And think about it, I like weighing about 178 to 180. I'm strong in the weight room. But for me to weigh 160, I'm really skinny. I look like Durian Ryder, how skinny I am. But anyways, it is what it is. Okay, let's see anything else in this this section here. Our mouths are different from carnivore. Our cats do not have taste buds for sweets or starchy foods. Humans do. Okay, cats have big teeth for piercing flesh, whereas our teeth are relatively flat, like a herbivore. Take a look at a picture of a horse's teeth and take a look at your own teeth. And people say, well, we have canines. Our canines are flat. I mean, they got barely any of a point on them. If you're walking down a path in the forest, the woods, the jungle, and you see a dead deer on the ground or dead antelope with flies buzzing around it, you don't get this intense urge to get down on your knees and take a bite out of it. It's kind of disgusting. We put out a bowl of fruit on the table, you salivate. We're made for that. Okay? That's why we got color vision in our eyes to see when a fruit is ripe. Carnivore doesn't need that. They're fine with black and white vision, just good motion detectors. And our peripheral vision, we've got our rods. Those are black and white. And then what happens is we see motion in the periphery. Then we turn our head to look with stereoscopic vision. Both eyes able to focus with our cones. Very tight packing of the photoreceptor. So we can see with color vision, two eyes, and depth perception more precisely what is, coming towards us, whatever. That's how our eyeballs work. Peripheral rods for motion sensing. Central cones for concentrated, high resolution, color vision, and depth perception. Okay, what else? We don't make vitamin C. We don't need to. There's tons of it in our plant foods. Cats have 7 times more stomach acid than humans do because they need it for digesting the high-protein meat. Carnivores have a short digestive tract. Humans have a long one, like 22 feet. There's in the ballpark, 11 foot or something. The foods that make you fat also make you sick. The foods that make you trim, they make you healthy. Okay, so that's it for this session. Hope that was helpful.